Hello, and welcome to another episode of Patient Conversations with Leah, where I love the fact that we get to sit down two cancer patients and just discuss what it's like to live day in and day out with a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis. Today's guest is Yvonne, and Yvonne is located in Europe, so she's got a different perspective just because of itself. But today we're going to talk to her about kind of her diagnosis story, and then we're going to kind of get into her advocacy work because she's a very big advocate. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Yvonne to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you so much, firstly, for having me on today, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. So my name is Yvonne Diaz, and I was diagnosed with stage 4 ALK-positive lung cancer in August 2021. Before that, like I think many of us, I was blissfully unaware that we could get lung cancer, right? So I was just busy living my life as a working mother. My professional background is in corporate communications and social media. I was heading up global media relations and social media at a big professional services company. I'm a mother to twin teenage boys and was just in the middle of that busy part of life where you're just trying to hold it all together. And this diagnosis really prompted me to get involved into advocacy. I thought I would use my professional skills to turn to what I think is one of the biggest PR problems out there, and that's lung cancer. So I think there's a lot of work to do. As we know, we're one of the most stigmatized cancers out there. And I think by working together, we can really make a big difference.
I totally agree. Maybe can you just tell the listeners out there exactly what cancer you were diagnosed with and how old you were, how old your kids were, and just kind of how that journey has been thus far?
So, to cover my diagnosis briefly, basically in April 2021, we're in the middle of lockdown. It was kind of, we were coming in and out. I live in London. I should have said that in the beginning. Been here for 26 years, although you'll hear also I do have an American accent. I was raised in the States to Cuban parents. And so I'm having a bit of a cough and I'm feeling some pressure in my chest. And although I never had allergies, I just thought I must have developed them. So I kind of explain away that myself, and I'm feeling this pressure on my chest, but I was under a lot of work stress, and I've had that before, and I just thought that must just be anxiety and stress and all that. So I kind of was just ignoring it a little bit, not for too long really, because it started to get a little bit difficult. And by June I just found we're all on these Zoom calls working from home, and I just found I couldn't make it through a call. And so I wound up seeing my GP and was helping to misdiagnose myself, because I went in there exactly with that. Oh, I have this cough, I think maybe I have allergies. Oh, I have a chest pressure. Oh, it's probably work stress. And thankfully, she sent me for an x-ray. And that's really what found a tumor in the bottom of my right lung. At first, again, they didn't expect it would be lung cancer. So, the whole thing takes a bit of some time, because they wanted to repeat the x-ray. By the time the x-ray comes back, I'm now on holiday with my family. We went back to the States, and I'm on some big trip. I had no idea. I missed a PET scan appointment, or CT scan appointment actually, and until they called me and said, you didn't turn up. And really, when I got home after that in August, that's when the whole roller coaster ride of one PET scan, then another, and more CT scans, etc. And then finally, I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I learned a month later, approximately, that I had the ALK mutation. So then I was put on a targeted therapy, and really had quite a great response. It's quite remarkable how you know, that cough went into like a really serious cough to the point of vomiting all day long. And then by the time I got home from my trip, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just laying in bed the whole time. I'd fall asleep without even being aware of it. I couldn't come down to the dinner table. My sons were 14. I have twin sons, and they were 14 at the time, and they would just eat their supper and do their homework in my bed. And then it was pretty scary time. And then really, from when I started my targeted therapy, I think it was like within 7 days, I was kind of roughly showing back up at the dinner table, and then managed to leave the house, take the dog for a walk. And then eventually I did return back to work. So it's pretty remarkable what, getting biomarker testing has done for all of us. And not everyone, obviously, but for many of us, getting on the precise treatment, such an important lesson in terms of, what's out there, and what being knowledgeable on these things is all about.
You're exactly right. We say knowledge is power. That's maybe the teacher in me. But, when you get this diagnosis and you're just the wind is knocked out of your sails. You just didn't even know that you could get this kind of a diagnosis. And then once that settles, it's like you really have to dig in and learn, because this is not a cancer like breast cancer where there's information constantly being put out there about the cancer and their treatment. So you really have to be your own advocate. I know, speaking of advocacy, that you've done some great advocacy work over in Europe. And I would love for you to tell our listeners kind of what you do as an advocate, what your group is called, and how it's going.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, for me, definitely getting involved into advocacy has been like a bit of a lifeline. And I just also feel like so much hope comes from finding out what's going on, seeing the research that's underway. When you really think about the fact that we are alive and living longer is really down to research. So getting involved in that has really helped me mentally. And that's the one thing I would also say, like when you're diagnosed, it's like a medical emergency. And then once your medical situation's almost treated, I felt like then became like the mental game of it all. And I just felt like I was waiting for my drugs to fail me, right? I knew, we all know over time we build up resistance to these targeted therapies, and, despite them being fantastic right now, but we know that will happen. And I just felt like, how can I learn more and be better empowered? Certainly, I think joining the support groups is a first step to empowering, informing, and connecting yourself with others. I wound up starting an organization here with a friend of mine called Jan, and her daughter was also diagnosed with ALK positive lung cancer at the age of 20. And we just thought, we just believe in research, and we thought something has got to be done about it. I look around at the biomarker groups and all the other lung cancer groups that frankly exist in the US, and there's been so much work underway. You look at ALK positive, which I'm on the board of in the US, but EGFR resistors, many others, the RET positive group, they're all fundraising for research and really being a part of the solution. So it just felt like getting involved, doing something like that here in the UK where we live. So while a lot of this great research is happening in the US, we definitely support that. Over time, all of us around the world wind up benefiting, often, not always, from the research that happens there. But how can we also make more research happen in the countries where we live? How can we bring more clinical trials to where we live? Because often when you are running through treatment, clinical trials are your ability to access that next great standard of care. So really getting involved first with ALK positive in the US was kind of something that just opened my mind up. And I thought I would use some of the skills I had. I just started looking at their social media and just seeing, well, actually, I think at the time, the lady who had been running it had sadly passed away. So nothing really was happening on their channels. And I thought, can I help you with that? And then I started doing that. And then I also want to do something here. So really joining with other organizations. I think Young Lung is phenomenal, and working with you guys, with Bianca, with many of you has been also fantastic, because really by collaborating, we can just do things so much better and faster. And it doesn't really matter kind of what everyone's mission might be, a little different. At the end of the day, we have to remember what we have in common, and that's that we want outcomes for lung cancer patients to be better and to come faster. So that's the thing we ultimately all care about. And I think if we just get our heads around that, we can really all work together and do things a lot better and faster.
I totally agree. It's not, it doesn't seem like it's EGFR against ALK or against RED or against ROS. I feel like all of us, younger demographic, and especially those with the genetically driven cancers, we're all wanting the same thing. We all have the same goal. Our goal is to live as long as we can in a good quality, to be here with our families, carry on a somewhat normal life. So I think it's great to be advocating alongside other advocacy groups, because I also think you hit different audiences that way. If you're only doing ALK, maybe ALK is only learning about your work. Whereas if you come and do something with Young Lung, then it's the younger group and also other biomarkers. So I think you're right. It kind of takes a village to do this advocacy work, for sure. What is your favorite thing about being an advocate?
I mean, I have to say, I feel like it's really hopeful. It's kind of strange because you're surrounded by people who are frankly ill, right? We're all ill. We have these serious diseases, and it's also heartbreaking because not everyone's responding well. People run through treatments in different ways. It's the most inspiring, rewarding, but heartbreaking thing. But I just feel like there's nothing like connecting with other people who truly understand you, right? And our families certainly want to help us and support us and get involved, our closest friends, but truly no one understands you like other people living with the same condition. So I just find it's so rewarding. It's sometimes you can get courage just from seeing what other people are facing, and they're picking up and carrying on. Some days you have a bad day, and later on you see others like maybe having a worse day than you and thinking that's really bad, and just thinking, you know what, it's okay, I can carry on. It's okay to have a bad day, a bad week, but keep moving. I do find the research super hopeful, just knowing that there are phenomenally clever people out there. Like their whole mission is about improving outcomes for people, like thus finding the next treatment, the next cure. That's absolutely exciting. And to think that if we can help move that forward in some way by giving them an insight, throwing funding their way, whatever it might be, um, to me that is truly rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, there's something like you said, no one truly understands it unless they're living it. And I feel very strongly about that because sometimes the place where you feel most comfortable are in groups of lung cancer patients, or even if it's a one-on-one, like we're having this discussion and you're like, yeah, she gets it or he gets it, because it is such a foreign concept to so many people, those of us that look healthy and are still living a semi-normal life, but also dealing with cancer. And the outside world sees somebody healthy and that's all, and yet there's all these other things that go along with it. So I appreciate you sharing kind of that you've experienced that too. I think some of the strongest, bravest people I've met have been people I've met in this demographic fighting these diseases. And we're trailblazers really, because like you, I've been diagnosed a little bit longer. There's not a lot of statistical data on what our lives are going to look like or what our life expectancies are. So we're the ones blazing the trails for everybody that's going to come behind us. So I think that's a pretty good thing to be trusted with for sure. Well, I just want to thank you for being here today. Today is just one of our 3-part series with Yvonne. We will be talking about other things like parenting and working full time as a as a lung cancer patient. We will also be talking a little bit about how to become your own advocate. And I think everyone will find these discussions very interesting and helpful as we all navigate this crazy life together. So thank you again. And you all please stay tuned and watch our next episode.
Thank you so much.